Hi, I'm Francesco Garripoli, and I welcome you to another Wuji Mountain Musings, the last chapter of my new book, The Chi Effect. And it's quite a chapter, actually. It's probably a good chunk of the whole book itself, over 800 musings or concepts from the book, the other chapters, which deal with a lot of very interesting things like quantum biology, Qigong, and the Chi Effect. What we know about astrophysics and our belief system, epigenetics. So the book is very deep in the sense that it goes into lots of parts of our reality. Okay, I mean, this is what we're dealing with here. For anybody to think this is a Newtonian mechanical universe and everything can be predicted, like the globalists might want to think you believe, trust me, it's not. And what we learn from quantum physics is the fact that this is a wonderfully unpredictable universe. And it's more like a dream in many ways. So let's look at this particular one I pick randomly out of the Wuji Mountain Musings, number 326. It's very short. You know, I've been reading a lot of long ones lately. So this is a short one, but it's deep. Okay. You tell me, you see what you think. I always love it when you write and respond to the blogs. Life is rarely what it seems. This whole reality is more like a dynamic dreaming. Well, what a surprise. You know, when you think of a dream, at least the kind that happens when you sleep, random things happen, right? Anybody who is aware of their dreams, you can go from one location on the planet to another, one place in time to another, from your childhood to your future. I mean, you have these random things. And so because it's so random, because it's so non-linear and illogical, we tend to think the dreams are just unprocessed stuff. You know, if you were Sigmund Freud, you would say they all be sexually motivated. If you were Carl Jung, you would say that they all had some kind of a principle in a system of universal consciousness. Okay. There's another way to look at this dreaming. The dreaming doesn't only exist in your sleep. What happens in your sleep is a window into how the mind works. We know that our mind is a reality generator. This can happen both in the survival mind, intellectual mind, and intuitive mind. It's the nature of the neural pathways in our brain. We barely know anything about how our brain functions, but we do know that it is a reality generator. Okay? Think about it. Everyone perceives with their five senses a world. You look at a flower. I love flowers. I grow a lot of flowers, as some of you know. You can look at that flower. It only exists by the photons that bounce off the surface of the petals that enter into your eye through your cornea, get flipped upside down, touch on the retina, which is a field of electronic receptors, basically. There's an optical nerve receptor that then goes down a pathway we call the optical nerve itself, and that goes to the brain to be processed. The physical flower doesn't enter your brain. The photons, one of our five senses, is our ability to see, and it's related to light. And that light sends an electronic message to your brain where that image of the flower is reconstructed. Now, has anybody ever played that game when you were a kid, the telephone game, where you whispered in somebody's ear a story and they whispered into another person's ear, and after 7 or 8 people, that last person was supposed to tell the story to the group, and it was dramatically different than the story you told to that first person. Why? Because each phase of reception, interpretation, and transmission goes through a massive processing. And what's that processing? Each person's belief system, each person's ability to hear the words that are said, process them, just like the light that went into your optic nerve and processed in your brain, and then repeat what that processing meant to that person based on their cultural experience, social upbringing, life experience, their relationship to the subject matter. Okay, so if it was a story about a flower and a person loved flowers, they would bring joy to that story. But if they told to the next person who maybe just got a rose bush thorn in their finger, well, the flowers might not be so nice. And then it goes to the next person who didn't receive flowers on Mother's Day, so she's a little upset. By the time that story goes through all those filters, you'd be amazed at what it turns out to be. Where's reality? I thought you said that reality was fixed, and my whole concept of dreaming was, fanciful. Well, no. We are constantly interpreting reality and then sharing it with others through our filter. Forget what happens in your own mind, in your own brain, how you interpret things. But you pass it on to other people and they pass it on. So reality is a constant dynamic. There is no one fixed reality. It's based on interpretations. That's why we love things like Qigong and yoga, meditation, practices that can bring us into a calm center where we reduce our triggers and we come to a place where we can see and experience and hear reality in a less triggered way. Think about it. If you're stressed and somebody tells you a story, you're going to hear that story a lot differently than if you heard that story in a joyful, calm space. It's just the nature. It's the nature of humans. It's the nature of reality. Things are contextual. If Einstein said anything about his theory of relativity, it was that reality is based on the observer. Gravity, time, velocity. Every aspect of traditional Newtonian physics only makes sense when we have a shared field of reference, right? But if a person's driving by in a car really fast and they see an object that you see when you're standing, it will look very different, okay? We know the story and the theories, because we haven't tested it yet, that if a person's traveling at a near speed of light out into space, and then they come back after a period of time, their frame of reference has changed so differently than the person who remained on Earth that most likely the aging of each body would appear differently. This is proven to be true because actually clocks in satellites have to be adjusted just because they are at 200 or 300 miles in the Earth's atmosphere and beyond. It changes their time reference. We learned about this by moon travel. So changing your reference changes reality. Is this more like a dream, a waking dream? You'll see that my next book is all about this, but let's stay in the Chi effect world right now in the Wuji Mountain Musings. Let's see how we can understand that what we see in the world is affected deeply by what we believe, and that our task is to move away from the triggered survival mind perception of the world, that fear-based, how I'm going to survive. Now, you might think that's just about eating and fighting, the fight or flight type of response, but actually the survival mind relates to a lot of our social skills. You didn't think about that. One of the biggest fears in psychology, and I studied a fair bit of psychology, is the fear of being ostracized. What did COVID teach us, this 2-year insanity teach us more than anything? That people would believe almost anything and say almost anything and do almost anything for the fear of not being included in their group that they thought believed a different way. So people adopted, even doctors and lots of politicians and lots of other leaders, adopted a group belief system because they didn't want to be seen as an outsider. And if anybody knows me, I'm born an outsider, so I have none of those triggers. I really love my community. I mean, we call our website, our nonprofit organization, Community Awake. So community is key to me, yet I believe a community is built on sovereign individuals who can understand that they're awake in a dream and that they bring something powerful to the group dreaming. And when you contribute positively, wow, that's real community. And that's a heart resonant connection you have with other people. So understanding how your survival mind influences your kind of connection with others. This is part of the dreaming. The dreaming is a dynamic, just like this Wuji Mountain Musing talks about. The reality is a dynamic. That means it's not fixed. Newtonian traditional physics talked about a very rigid, fixed universe that was very predictable. We've learned through quantum physics in the last 100 years that we can't know everything. You can't even know two simultaneous things about an electron, for heaven's sakes. So why fret over trying to understand things? And why not move out of that intellectual mind and into an intuitive mind where you trust your place in the dynamic unfolding of infinite realities, yet what you bring from a heart-centered place can be the most beautiful contribution to not only your world, but to the community that you share with. So trust. Trust. It takes trust to transform fear into intuition. And from that place of intuition and practicing that intuitive heart resonant place, you'll discover that you have a lot more skills than you thought. And that this reality may be a lot more like a dynamic dreaming than you were led to believe, which leads to lots of options. And for me, it gives me a tremendous sense of positivity and, I hate to use the word hope, but a sense of real beautiful futures unfolding for all of us. So trust that. Stay in heart resonance. Peace.